I now call upon Professor Ganapathy, a mentor to me also. Basically, my relationship with him begins maybe 10 years back when I met him in one of the healthcare conferences where he asked me, are you a member of Telemedicine Society of India? So I never knew that there was a Telemedicine Society of India, and then from then on we started working together. So Professor Ganapathy is President, Apollo Telemedicine Networking Foundation and mentor of Apollo Telehealth Services, a pioneer in telemedicine in India. Dr. Ganapathy has been doing working relentlessly from 1999 for the growth of telemedicine in India. And he is actually regarded as the father of Indian telemedicine. Professor Ganapathy will now, he is one of the best speakers I've ever heard, and I'm sure whoever has left in the evening are definitely going to miss. I now call upon Professor Ganapathy to speak about healthcare in 2025, a peep into the future.
Thank you, Dr. Senthil. Futurology is a pseudoscience where we extrapolate cutting-edge technology of today into the future. Ladies and gentlemen, in the next 25 minutes, I'm going to put you on a time machine and take you with me on a journey which I'm absolutely sure every one of us is going to take place. I really think that Senthil probably is a fan of Rudyard Kipling. Why else should a ophthalmology conference deal with so many subjects other than the two eyes? What do they know of England who only England know? I very strongly believe that as ophthalmologists, as medical physicians, we need to know much more than our basic subspecialty. Again, I think William Shakespeare must have a unique ability to predict, to look into the future. How could he have foreseen in the late 1500s that Google and Microsoft would scientifically prove that the eye, ladies and gentlemen, is indeed opening, if not our soul, opening the heart and the brain, as you will see in a few minutes. Now, let us see what India is going to be in just 15 years from now. This is a report from the CIA, Central Intelligence Agency. They predict that India is going to become a powerhouse in 2030, that we will be a super developed country. 5G, the Telecom Secretary of India has publicly announced that this time we are not going to lose the race, and when 5G comes in the next 2 years, India will be in the forefront. We will be the most connected IT-savvy society. The country which only had a past is beginning to have the future, and let us see what is really going to happen. The word digital technology has now become a household name among all medical students and doctors. When I joined medical college exactly half a century ago, it was management of diseases. Medicine was all about diagnosis and treatment. In the next decade, you will get paid much more if you do not operate on a patient and if you save the exchequer much more money. Promoting wellness is going to be the key word. The very word health care, it's not disease care, ladies and gentlemen, it is health care. We are going to talk of diabesity, management of the elderly, child care, pregnancy trips. We are all familiar with health trackers, home health monitoring, wearable technology, and so on. Surgical theaters, believe me or not, will become much less, and I will show you evidence, hard-based evidence to show that very soon there will be a doctor in your pocket, a hospital in your pocket, a laboratory in your pocket. Mobile technology will be the order of the day. Telemedicine, when I ventured into telemedicine in 1999, everybody laughed at me, everybody ridiculed at me. But in the last 2 years, the government of India and many state governments have realized that not in the lifetime of my great-great-grandchildren will there be enough brick-and-mortar hospitals, and the only way we can bridge the ever-increasing urban-rural health divide is to provide remote health care, and this is what we are doing. EMR, EHR, national accreditations, and so on and so forth. EMR, EHR will be the order of the day in just a decade from now. The digital patient experience. It is universally acknowledged that the growth, adoption of any technology anywhere in the world depends on the government. When the government embraces a constructive policy for digital health programs, you will find the entire ecosystem is going to scale. The new National Health Service, which is going to be started in September, will certainly going to give a tremendous fillip for digital technology, standardization of data, and it is my dream that in the next 20 years, every single human being of this country, from anywhere, the Aadhaar card, though there's a lot of controversy about it, this specific 16-digit number will enable you to download every single past history, present history, and so on. This is going to be the India of the future. Adoption, affordability, availability, and acceptability of solutions is going to increase. What do we do today? Today, we have radiology information systems. We talk of technology upgrade. We are slowly migrating to the cloud. It's no longer a new word among many of us. What is going to happen in the next couple of years? We are going to talk of virtual care. The patient is going to be in his house. I remember getting a WhatsApp message which said beautifully, a message from the patient will see you now. Gentlemen, this is going to happen. It is not your secretary telling the patient, the doctor will see you now. In a few years, the patient will tell you, the patient will see you now. And this is already on the cards. In the near future, we are going to have IoT, predictive technology. Day before yesterday, I read in the newspaper that the airport is already going to have 2 robots in the domestic terminals which are going to receive us. This is the real world. Robots are not something humanoid robots. Sophia already got a license in Saudi Arabia. There are several clones of Sophia already available. A robot secured much more marks than medical doctors in a Chinese national entrance examination test. NEET, I'm sure robots are going to procure much more marks than others. This is the real world which is going to happen. Now, PricewaterhouseCoopers, in an excellent study last year, where they interviewed hundreds of CEOs, showed that most of the CEOs believe that the most disruptive technology in the field of healthcare is going to be artificial intelligence and Internet of Things. Analytics, business intelligence, cognitive computing, neural network, and so on. These are not words which you read to appear in an examination. These are terminology which you will actually be using on a daily basis. I love this quote. Using digital tools to reach patients is no longer a question of if, it's a question of how, and it's a matter of now. The future is always ahead of schedule. The future is not next decade, the future is today, not even tomorrow. So this is the real world. Are we ready for a hospital which has no patients? I am ready, and I am sure that in my lifetime, I am going to see the new hospitals which are going to be built in the future is going to be for cardiac transplants, liver transplants, for polytrauma, and so on. 90% of medical conditions which require hospitalization today can be treated remotely in the comfort of the patient's home, in his business office, and so on and so forth. Please remember that the hospital as you know it today is going to totally change, and this is going to happen. The next 10 minutes, I'm going to give you a few examples. Many of them may sound far-fetched, but this is all from peer-reviewed, indexed, PubMed indexed journals, scientifically validated by others. Now just look at this paper published in Microsystem and Nanoengineering just 10 days ago. Now this talks about a wristband performing a blood cell count. I need to read this. Honestly, it's too much for me. We present a wearable microfluidic impedance cytometer. Somebody needs to translate this into English. I have no idea what it means. The platform contains a standard polymethyl diloxane microfluidic channel integrated on a wristband, blah, blah, blah. Whatever it is. The point is that today the technology is available where a drop of blood is taken automatically, analyzed in a wearable technology, and it tells you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not excited by this. I am worried. I am concerned. I belong to the BC era, before computers and before Christ are one and the same. I am worried that my children and my grandchildren, this is what they're going to be exposed to. I believe in what Sir William Osler said. Listen, listen, listen. He's telling you the diagnosis. Today, technology is going in search of an application. If you take my blood pressure continuously, I'm sure there'll be episodes when my BP is 220 by 140. Every time I see a pretty girl, my BP goes to 220. But thank God it's not recorded on a second-to-second basis. But if this is what is done, imagine artificial intelligence, somebody giving an order to release, my sugar goes up, insulin is released automatically, and so on and so forth. So clinical applications. Now look at this, urine analysis. I was introduced to medical care in General Hospital. My professor of medicine gave me a sample of urine. I so vividly remember 1969, asked me to smell it. I couldn't. Then he said, doesn't it smell like apple, fruity odor? I said, yes, sir. He said, this patient has got acetonuria. This patient has got diabetic acidosis. That is how I was taught to diagnose diabetic acidosis. Look how you diagnose today. Today, a paper was presented at the American Association of Neurosurgeons where the biomarker is present in the urine, which reflects the presence of cerebral arteriovenous malformations. Several papers have now been published which state that glioblastoma multiforme, the most malignant tumor in the body, produces biomarkers which can be seen in the urine. No doubt it will take 5 years before the FDA approves it because it becomes clinical standard. But believe me, my grandchildren will not get an MRI scan done. They will get a urine examination done to diagnose brain tumors. And all this is published literature. Look at this. Drop of blood to diagnose brain injury. I don't know if there are any neurologists or neurosurgeons in this audience, but all of us, I'm a neurosurgeon, all of us are familiar with glial fibrillary acid protein. Today, technology is available with a point-of-care diagnostics. Just like you have a glucometer, you take a drop of capillary blood. Every one of us are familiar with it. The same procedure, you can quantify the presence of GFAP, interleukin 10, S100B, and so on and so forth. And based on this, you can, at the moment, with a 60% accuracy, which obviously is not acceptable, with a 60% accuracy, you can say that there is a primary neuronal injury in the brain which cannot be picked up on a CT scan. So I foresee the day in my lifetime where a drop of blood, point-of-care diagnostics. Imagine 600,000 villages in India. Imagine all the ashas in India. Imagine this POCD device being available there, and hopefully sensitivity and specificity will increase where this would become almost 95% reliable. This would be a fantastic method for a tele-triage, for screening and deciding which patient should go for a CT scan. You're all too familiar with this, I don't need to tell you, and I'm delighted. I happen to be on the committee for BIRAC, Department of Biotechnology. Part of my job includes evaluating research proposals, and I'm delighted that 3 people are already working on this, and it will very soon be approved at 20% the international cost. Believe me, in the next couple of years, this will come to the market where you don't need a drop of capillary blood, you just have a wearable technology, and this is going to be manufactured in India. Again, this is a photograph which I took in Pune, one of the people whom we have funded from the Department of Biotechnology, machine with automated dispensing machine with artificial intelligence, Marathi language, voice recognition. 50 symptoms, you just talk in Marathi, the machine understands, asks you appropriate questions, you answer, and a paracetamol tablet or an antidiarrheal tablet is actually dispensed. 100% made in India, indigenous, and in a year from now, we will be doing clinical trials on this. This is the country we are in. Microsoft, the competitors, I work in Apollo hospitals, the competitors for Apollo hospitals is not Fortis, is not the All India Institute, is not Just Look. It is Microsoft, Google, Uber. These are the companies which are going to take over healthcare. The number of patents which Google and Microsoft have got in healthcare are much more than that got by Johns Hopkins or Stanford. This is the new healthcare of the future. As ophthalmologists, I can't resist showing a few examples of how the eye, of how spectacles are used. Here is a spectacle. You talk about the angular artery, the superficial temporal artery, occipital artery, and so on, which is where sensors, the spectacles you wear, will precisely tell you the systolic and diastolic blood pressure. Google's new algorithm predicts cardiovascular disease by looking at your eyes. Of course, there's a long way to go. This is still in the research clinical trial stage, but certainly it's going to happen where you can predict by applying neural language network, by applying machine learning, and so on. And these are articles which have been published in Nature, Biomedical Engineering. Nature is one of the most prestigious journals of the world, published on 19 February 2018. Diabetic retinopathy. I mean, as a neurosurgeon, it will be ridiculous for me to tell an elite audience like you about diabetic retinopathy, but you know much more than me, how many people are at risk, etc. We also know that there's a lopsided distribution of ophthalmologists, there's an acute shortage of optometrists and ophthalmologists in rural and suburban India. Just right now, we are already Apollo Telehealth Services. We are now running 115 tele-ophthalmology centers with Dr. Sendil to help us, where images are transferred. More than 80,000 images have already been reported. I'm sure that in the next couple of years, we will get a semi-automated, at least, algorithm whereby the report can be given and it just has to be validated by a human being. So these are lack of time. I'm not going to the details, excepting to show that the sensitivity and specificity with these algorithms are as good as a human being. When I was a medical student, exactly 50 years ago, I was taught that the primary visual cortex is in the occipital lobe. I would have been failed if I had said or even suggested that the auditory cortex is in the occipital lobe and the visual cortex is in the superior temporal gyrus. Perhaps 50 years from now, the medical students will be taught that you will be able to see with hearing. The preliminary part of this has already come. You can see here, augmented reality for the totally blind. Again, every scripture, in every religion, there is a Messiah, whether it is Jesus Christ, whether it is Muhammad the Prophet, whoever it is. This Messiah says, the blind will see, the lame will walk, the deaf will hear. Go to Velangani, go to St. Lude's, go to that temple, go to this mosque. In the future, in the very near future, this could happen. Today, the blind are seeing already, seeing with machine vision. The blind have got ultrasonic sound canes, and these canes produce sound, and today it's relatively simple for a neurosurgeon to implant electrodes into specific areas of the brain, and the sound is converted into a visual impulse. Seeing with sound. Again, for lack of time, I'm not going into all these details, but all these patents have been applied for. Who, as I put here, temporal lobe for vision, not the occipital lobe. This is what could happen in 20-25 years from now. Scientists have 3D printed the most advanced artificial cornea using human cells. Imagine 20 years from now, you can order corneas, and these corneas can be customized, taking every single thing which you do right now. 3D printing is freely available, costs are coming down, and this is what has happened. Several papers have been published, and inexpensive, printed 3D eye prosthesis. The prosthesis of the eye now are not as perfect as it used to be. Again, Microsoft Intelligent Network for Eye Care. Now this is something fantastic. This is a quotation I took from Times of India, Jaslok Hospital, 10 days ago. Can you imagine in Bombay, an in vitro fertilization, and before the egg was removed from the mother, the BRA21C gene was removed by a cytologist. This woman's mother and her two aunts had breast cancer. They not only identified the gene, which is no big deal, but what is a big deal is that in Bombay, in Bangalore, They have removed the gene, and this baby has now delivered a baby which does not have the gene. This has happened in our country. So this is going to be routine. Glaucoma. Why do you need to diagnose, treat glaucoma at a very late stage? If you can identify 40 novel genetic markers for glaucoma, that is step number 1. Step number 2 is, as soon as conception takes place, remove these 40 genes. This has already been done, not for 40 genes, not for glaucoma, but it has been done for several other procedures. So I think this is my last slide. I just want to show you in the real world what is going to happen. Today we know that Digital India is the name of the game. Doctors have been told, I read a newspaper report, that doctors will, maybe in a year or two, not be allowed to take consultation fees by cash. Every single transaction has to be digital. When this happening, imagine somebody purchases a little more alcohol than he normally purchases. With his Aadhaar card or his credit card or whatever it is, in seconds, Big Brother who's watching you all the time will record that you are probably depressed, potential symptoms of depression. A message will go in real time to your healthcare provider. Look, your patient is getting more alcohol than normal. Go on elaborating the same. Gym membership. You do not renew your gym membership. A message goes immediately, hey, look, this guy is not renewing it, potential risk for diabetes and heart attack. Purchase of cigarettes by an asthma patient, COPD. And why do people do all this? Not because they care for my health, not because they want to give me a good quality of life. It is ROI, return on investment. Vitamin M is the single largest motivator for good health care. Insurance companies, we are already starting. Insurance companies are more interested in my COPD, in my pulmonary functional vital capacity, in my blood sugar, blah, 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 because they will have to reimburse me if I end up in a coronary artery bypass. Next time I stop my car and want to buy an ice cream from Baskin Robbins, instantaneously a message goes to the insurance company and I get a message on my smartwatch that, look, your last triglyceride was 380, don't you go near the Baskin Robbins ice cream, turn left, 1 block to the right, turn left, and there you get healthy vegetables, which is what you require. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not science fiction. This is technology already available. It's just a question of time before this is actually implemented. So I could go on and on. Purchase of plus size clothes. Look at this. I was wearing 44 all these years. And my haberdasher knows that I'm now buying 46. The very fact that I'm buying the next increase size, message goes, Google picks it up, artificial intelligence, they say, okay, my Indian diabetic risk score, umbilicus tape measurement is scored more than 60, I put on weight. Before I know that I have become obese, Big Brother tells me that he has become obese. So this is the future. Now let's come back to the real world. In the real world, we are already in a very advanced stage with Anna University and 2 other organizations. Hopefully within a year from now, medical drones will be available. And guess what we are going to use these drones for? We are not going to use it for any sexy project. We are going to use it to lift spectacles. To lift spectacles from a manufacturing center and have it delivered somewhere, because it's easier for drones to drop these spectacles from a height rather than for us to send it through courier. So the applications are limitless, absolutely limitless. Again, I am very, very optimistic, particularly after I read the Honorable Prime Minister's remark in the Independence Day speech. The Prime Minister of India has mentioned that on the 75th Independence Day, just 3 years from now, and the chairman of ISRO has confirmed it. I mean, this is a directive from the Prime Minister. What else can you do? The first Indian manned space mission will take place. Okay, may not be 75, maybe 76, maybe 3-4 years from now, maybe 5 years from now, but definitely this is going to happen. We have already signed a formal MOU with an organization called Innova Space, and hopefully in a couple of, we want to be future ready. The one thing you need to do is to be future ready, and I'm sure that tele-ophthalmology in outer space is going to happen, maybe very, very small numbers, but definitely is going to happen. So in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, remember that the nicest thing about the future is that it always starts tomorrow. This statement is not true. Most of us are afraid of the future. We cling desperately to the present, not realizing that we have already become the past. Unless you are future ready, as Mark Twain said, the future ain't what it used to be. So please I would like to say I belong to the BC era, but unless I am future ready, when I got my MCH, there was no CT scan. The MRI had not even been thought of. Can you imagine me practicing neurosurgery today without knowing everything about an MRI? So you need to be future ready. So as ophthalmologists, I think you should not have a myopic vision. You should look far beyond the visual system. You should look far beyond the single body. Please treat, at the end of the day, unfortunately, when I was in second year MBBS, nobody taught me health economics. Neither did I know, as one of the speakers mentioned in the pre-lunch session, there are only about 1,600 neurosurgeons in the country. But then, the incidence of brain tumors is only 7 per 100,000. Whereas the incidence of refractive error, cataract, etc., 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 90% of the people will have to come to you after the age of 30. So probably, if I had known all this, I would probably have chosen ophthalmology. But anyhow, you people are doing a great job. And my take-home message is, look beyond the visual system. Please remember to treat human beings and not just correct their refractive error or put in an intraocular lens. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Can I have a big round of applause? Thank you, Mr. Ganapathy. Thank you, Dr. Ganapathy, for giving a glimpse of the future. I now request Dr. Sohan Raj to kindly come up on stage and present a memento to Dr. Ganapathy.
I see.